Okay, so now the text block is in good shape. I have a method for I think how we're going to approach the reattachment. So probably worth explaining what these guys are first. So these were originally inside the binding, sort of under here and under here. I was able to sort of fish them out. On this side, sacrificed a bit of this end paper. It's not a big deal. I can put a new piece over that. The good news is on this side, that book plate, which I really want to preserve, is intact. And I was able just to slide it out and so on. So it's really interesting. I'm really struggling to date these two bits. They're a cardboard, but they're much more resilient than this. This just feels so much rougher and softer and more primitive, whereas this is a pretty, stiff, resilient pressed cardboards. There was actually a bit of paper on this, and it's interesting. There are a couple of things to note. The first is that these pieces both have two holes punched in them like this. That's nothing to do with this book, and that kind of tells me that these were from another book. That's reinforced by the existence of this bit of sort of scrap paper that's stuck onto this one. And if I fold that here, there's actually a bit of now very sort of vulnerable and brittle silk ribbon. So I'm going to hazard a guess that these were made a lot later than this, and I'm going to guess these are probably 19th century, and at some point an owner or book restorer thought, it'd be a good idea just to put them in, just to give a little bit of stiffness to these boards, which I can kind of understand, and I don't see any harm in us using these as well. So the plan. The fact we've been able to take these out is actually going to make life a little bit easier for us. So what I've done to make a start here is I've actually just pierced some groups of 3 holes, and what I'm going to do is unravel each of these and thread each through a hole here. So basically what we're going to end up with is a series of twines that'll sort of be glued and splayed out, as it were, sort of going through the holes, so coming through from the other side and then sort of laying out here. These will, sort of probably lay out in that direction. These probably here or whatever, and likewise here. So basically we'll have the threads sort of coming through these holes and attached to this. At the same time, I'm going to do now. So if you look here at this sort of main binding, we've got this sort of fold down or card here, which means that if I'm going to actually adhere this fabric to this board, and this board's going to go back in here, I'm actually going to need to trim this fabric just a little bit here, just to take at a triangle here at the top and the bottom, so that we can actually feed the fabric around. So in order to do that, I'm literally just going to there we go. Reduces the amount of fabric we'll have in contact a little bit. I don't think it does so by a desperate amount. Like so. So what that's going to enable us to do is we'll have this fabric stuck down here as well. We'll have the thread stuck down there, and then the plan is I'm actually going to glue this first, let it dry so it's completely dry and rigid, and then what we're going to do then is do a really big sort of glue exercise where I'll be putting a lot of glue onto this surface board here, and we'll slide this guy back in, put a bit of glue on the top of the board here and here as well to make contact with this, put it under pressure, and I think that way we'll have a nice adhesion. So the idea basically is that we're maximizing the extent to which this, which is robust, will take the weight of the text block, and then the maximum surface area possible of this is then being adhered to this, which is a weaker cardboard, in such a way that the weight of the book, worst case scenario, someone to actually hold the book up by the covers, which wouldn't be great, but you've got the maximum spreading of the weight of the text block over the maximum surface available inside here. And in that way, I think we'll, create something that's really quite resilient, hopefully. So, next step, thread these holes, get these in, stick down the fabric, do the same on the other side, and then we'll have a go at gluing. Okay, this has become a bit of a Jenga puzzle, and it's forcing me to do things in a certain order and do it in one go. I'd hope to be able to sort of thread this, glue it down, and then put it back in the cover, but in actual fact, because of these holes here, the string actually has to go through the cardboard and then be threaded in there, which basically means I have to do this all as in one shot. So I've got the book plate here, that's still safe and out the way. So what I'm going to do now is just slather glue over here in situ. So I'm going to do something a little odd. I've actually got some glue here just on a lid, and I'm going to just use a toothbrush to just go at it inside and just applying the glue liberally over the surface of the board while it's in situ. I'm also going to just put a little bit over here. Just put a bit more glue here. As you can see, I'm using the clear glue. I don't think it's particularly different to using the school glue, but what this will do is it'll also now I need to balance a couple of things here. I need to be relatively rapid because this is cardboard, and as the glue soaks into it, it's going to lose structural integrity. It's not going to be stiff. So I need to get a move on and use the structural integrity while I still have it to push the board up into place. At the same time, make sure that none of these strings actually pull through, because the longer I work on this, the softer everything will get and the more prone it'll be to tearing. So, okay, looks like I'm in luck. So this guy is now in place, which means I can now start to tighten these up, like so. Do these, the critical ones there, and then tighten these guys up. Now, I want it to just be enough tension to keep this taut, but I don't want this thing moving around, and I certainly don't want to be tearing this cardboard. So I think that pretty well what I wanted to achieve. So all of this string takes no harm by just sitting there. There we go. Like so. All right. A bit more glue. So this bit honestly is quite high risk because it's kind of one and done. We're going to have a serious problem if I've made some error of principle here as I do this. So I'm hoping that I've thought this through right and I don't suddenly have some horrible revelation that I've done it all horribly wrong. Just spreading things out like this, it just helps it to lie flat. Because this fabric's going to go on top of it in just a second here. There we go. Okay, that I think will do. Okay. Okay. I've got a little bit of a gap. You can see a little bit of a looseness there. Probably not. Ooh, there, pull that one through. But other than that, I'm probably not overly concerned. I'll probably give this one final shove, although I don't think, no, it's a little bit too. Because I also don't want to sacrifice all the flexibility, but on the other hand, I don't want the whole thing to end up loose. Okay, I think that's probably as good as I'm going to get. Now what I'm going to do, more glue over this surface. Now I'm going to have to be careful here. One thing I don't want is any glue to imprint onto the title page. That would be a nightmare. Recording at the moment. And what I'm now going to do is bring the fabric up. Now again, the main job of the fabric is not to support the boards, but to give the spine stiffness, which is already done separately. So this is just a little sort of bonus benefit there. We'll just tighten up slightly. Just want to tighten that little. You see, there's one little loop there that's a little bit loose. So. Getting there, just a little bit of glue along here, just to bring up this fabric. Some of this, probably not too much. basket of eels. Okay, yeah, that's more commonsensical, I think. All right. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is a little bit of glue here. All right. Now bring this book plate down. So what I'm going to have to do is there's going to be another reasonably robust layer of end paper. I'm going to that I'm going to put across the bottom here to cover this bit of fabric. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side now using the same kind of principle, and then just put quite a bit of pressure and also protective kitchen towel just to make sure that there's no sort of printing across. And, I need to be careful with that. There we go. Everything here is very vulnerable at the moment. Obviously that cardboard that I just put the glue on is soft, so I don't want to. That's going to be fine. Okay, so first step done. Then we'll do the other side, and then we're going to look closely at the tension that we've got here and make sure that everything's holding together as reasonably well it can. Same thing on the other side. I've put the threads through. Now I'm going to just lift this board and slather on this glue. And again, I'm up against a time constraint here because the glue will soak into the cardboard and soften it. So while I've got some stiffness, I'm going to push the board from up and then going to reach under, grab these threads, start to take up the slack. This is where I need the text block to be in the right place. Okay. Peakiness is going to be kind of inevitable at this point. That's what I wanted. big old length to take up there. It's a long one. And the same here. Okay. Alright. Making some progress now. That's way too much. Okay. Trim a few of these as well. Okay, now I'm going to get ready to have a nicer length of fabric here, which is a little helpful as well. So this gives me a little more to play with. There we go. Okay. There's still a little bit of slack in these guys, so I'm gonna. I'm just going to tighten them up a little bit. There we go. Yes, I'm not too bothered about the actual end paper itself because there's no book plate, there's nothing valuable here, so I can put some clean sheets over this. Okay. All right. Time for some a little bit more kitchen roll, and then we'll see where we're at. Okay, sort of in the end zone here almost. So if we look at the book, I mean, the book itself is in good shape. We just need to finish a little bit in terms of the end paper. So what I've done, first off at the front, I've covered this section here where we did all of our surgery, and this is one contiguous piece, so we've got a nice sort of fly here, but of course that leaves us with this little exposed gap here. Now I want this joint to be loose enough so it doesn't split the paper and the ball can come away, because that natural sort of flexibility is good, but obviously I don't want this sort of fabric showing. So for this one, what I'm going to do is I have a little extra strip of reasonably contemporary paper here. So what I'm going to do is first off just put a strip of glue along the fabric here. Like so. Get rid of that dollop there. Obviously be cautious here because obviously you're working against the title page. Now what I'm going to do with this one is actually I'm going to fold it back down, the fly back down. Now what that'll do is it means this sort of end paper here is never going to reach all the way up against the rest of the board, but frankly that for me isn't a big issue. But it just means that I'm going to be able to just cover this little gap here. Ferret away that little bit of fabric there, like so. And then just for the final flourish, I'm going to put this little piece here. So now I'll show in a minute. There's a trick I have in terms of how I then have the glue set, because it'd be very easy to stick this down and then the first time you open the book again you just split it, because obviously the paper itself has very little strength. So you want to be in a situation where you're never actually stressing this little bit of paper. But we're going to put that on like this. I'm doing it in such a way that it's covering a seam, but it's not actually covering any sort of bare fabric or anything like that. And I've got a little bit of strength left in the paper, just going to move it down so it's okay, like that. Now I'm going to open the cover bit because I want this to go as far back as it reasonably can. There we go. And then here's my recommendation. At this point, don't close the book. You're going to leave the book open and let it dry. And for that, I'm actually going to use my little sort of wooden vise here as a weight. So if we look at the back, almost a similar issue. What we've got is, I put this fresh sheet of paper over the surgery we did, but we've got a reasonably big, I'll just this way for a second, we've got a reasonably big gap here, which I left deliberately, just to illustrate the sort of final point. Again, I'm going to just glue this section down. Put some glue on the fabric as well. There we go. Just a bit right up to the edge. Okay. So I'm now going to fold this over, and I'm going to do so in such a way that the maximum amount of paper possible goes into the joint, leaving the minimum possible actually sticking to the fly, this sort of end paper here. Because again, I want there to be enough slack that the paper doesn't split the first time I open the book. And I'm just making sure. So, there we go. Now, I freely admit this may still give once or twice, and I may end up putting another piece of paper over it. Not the biggest disaster in the world. But anyway, so I'm going to leave this to dry overnight. But that basically is it. So there we are. Delle Istorie del suo tempo. This book is now fully reassembled. Text block's in great shape. The boards are reattached, just allowing these end papers to dry. And there we go. This book is set fair. So if you like this, please give it a like. Feel free to subscribe. Any comments, leave them in the comments section. And on to the next restoration.